Hello, my name is Doug Smith, and welcome to another edition of Portsmouth This Week. Today is the 26th of July, and my guest this week is David Gleason, one of our town council members. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Doug.
And I'll call you Dave if that's okay.
Dave is great.
I wonder if we could start with a little bit of your own personal background, where were you born, where were you raised, that kind of stuff.
Sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me. We were just talking a minute ago. This is the 66th time that this filming has taken place, so I really appreciate being a guest here. First off, I'm going to admit I'm not a native to Portsmouth. I grew up in Middletown, and I got to Middletown because both my parents were veterans of World War II, and my dad was stationed in D.C. area. I was born in Bethesda, Maryland. 2 years later, I came to Newport, and I've been here ever since. I'm the oldest of five. All of us live on the island here still today, and it's a beautiful place to live.
It is that.
If it wasn't for the Navy, I probably never would have got here. My dad was from Lowell, Mass. My mother was from Morgantown, West Virginia. And I'm happy to say I've lived in Portsmouth a little over 30 years now, and it's a beautiful place to live. I'm grateful for my parents for picking Newport area, and my dad used to take off and go to sea, and fortunately he didn't take us with, relocate us to another town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very similar to my story, which I'll tell you sometime, but did you go to school in Portsmouth then, or Newport?
Actually, I graduated from Middletown High in '72.
Okay. Yeah. And what kind of work experience have you had? You haven't been in the military yourself.
No.
But you're a military kid, so you know what that's all like.
One of the things that the military taught me was that I didn't want to be in the military. I didn't want to be away from my kids. And although, I think a lot of people do the military and get their 20 years in and get a pension out of it. So there's something to be said for that. But I got out of high school, and I really had no intentions of going to college. I got in the construction field. I worked at Electric Boat as a welder, and that turned into a stint in the Carpenters Union here. And after jobs like I was up on the roof of High-Lie in the middle of the winter of 1975. About that time I met Karen. She was in college, my wife Karen Gleason, and she had influence on me going to college. So I took some courses, and 4 years later I had a mechanical engineering degree from UMass Dartmouth.
Okay.
So I did my college thing a little bit different, but I was doing kitchens and baths while I was going to school.
Yeah,
so
well, that paid for it, though.
Yeah, that helped a lot.
You didn't come out with a lot of debt at the end, right?
I did not. Of course, those were times were a lot different.
Yeah, I know that. They really were. Yeah.
Today's college education cost.
That's right.
Yeah. So from there, I graduated. I got to say, I graduated on June 6th. I went to work June 7th. I went to Brayton Point. It was my first job out of college, and I worked on rotating equipment, rebuilding turbines, compressors, things of that nature. I was considered a production engineer, and about that time the plant was going through a coal conversion from oil, and they're still burning coal today, which is turned into quite a controversial subject in itself. But from there, I actually went to a power plant in Sandwich and used to drive from Portsmouth to Sandwich 6 days a week.
That must have been fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But eventually I became a desk jockey, for lack of better words. I spent 12 years as a purchasing agent and a contracts administrator for the electric utility I was working for. So I have a few different things under my belt, which I think were good items to bring with me when I became a council member.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, I think just somebody who's familiar with the power and the grid and all this kind of stuff would be a big plus on the
I would
council.
think so, yeah, absolutely.
Because there aren't very many people that know that very well.
No, and I've been out of it for 10 years or so at this point. Right now I work as a property manager up at Penfield School, which is a total opposite from what I was doing. But that kind of business hasn't changed too much, nor has rotating equipment. And I think I bring a little bit to the table as far as when we get into discussions about the wind turbine generator.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We need some expertise, believe me, in that area.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Now,
how about kids?
I've got two kids. My daughter, Jenny, is in her mid-30s, and I have her grandson actually lives with me. He's 8 years old. His name is John. Hi, John. And my son, Dave, who he's in his early 30s, and both of my kids are teachers.
Okay, are they in the area too?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Okay, that's nice. At least you can see them every once in a while.
I see them all the time. One lives next door to me, one lives with me.
Oh, wow, one lives next door? That may be too close,
Right.
I don't know.
But, you know, I don't want to miss saying that, you know, I married into an extended family. You know, Karen is one of 8 kids, and there's 2 boys and 6 girls, and kind of an extended line of politicians, if you will. Her father, Everett Perky Korea, was on the council back in the days when Jim Seventy's father was on the council, and he was followed by his son for a few years, Everett Jr., and then my wife Karen actually did 4 years on the school committee before she did 4 years on the town council. So I never expected to be on the town council, but I think I had some people ahead of me that showed me the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, as we'll get to, I'd like to hear how you think your experience has been that way and whether you'd recommend it for other people. But I know even though you weren't on the town council previously, you did have some fairly active roles in the town. Can you discuss some of those?
Oh, absolutely. I had to retire from, I think, 6 committees, you know, as becoming a council member. The first committee I got involved with, you know, Karen was I think she was on the school committee at the time, and I wanted to do more for the town. So this committee came up. They were looking for people to be on the Lower Glen Farm Preservation Committee to preserve the barns down below the 70 complex. Something that still I run into people today that, you know, similar to the Founder's Brook, a lot of people don't know it's there until you go down there. But these buildings date back to the early 1900s in the Taylor Farm. It was a gentleman farm that you'll hear Jim Garman speak about. And that was the first committee I joined. To this day, I'm still actively involved, and I'm the liaison to that committee. 2007 was the second committee I joined, was the Solid Waste and Recycling Committee. Goes back to my days in the 70s of collecting cans and bottles, and I met George Thurston at the old town garage on Schoolhouse Lane, and we were recycling back then. So I always had an interest in recycling and repurposing some of these materials that people were throwing away. I also became a member of the Wastewater Management Commission. I knew that was going to be a big issue in town, and we'll talk further on that, and became the vice chair with Phil Driscoll being the chair of that committee. Also the Elmhurst Reuse, which has become the Elmhurst Planning Committee, and lastly the Charter Review Committee, which was 2010. Yeah. So I've tried to take an active role in you know, these what I consider major items that affect the town, and that led to me wanting to go a little bit further. These are advisory committees. I totally endorse people getting involved, but I wanted to have a little bit more of a say, and I went out and went and was the great people at Portsmouth gave me a chance, and here I am on the town council. Yeah.
Well, how do you like it so far? I mean, is it what you expected it to be?
Yeah, it is. You know, people say, you know, how's it going? Well, are you having fun on the council? I don't think you can always say it's fun, but it is a job you got to do, and
somebody's going to do it.
Somebody's going to do it. I mean, we've got some heavy items coming up down the road here, and these are some major decisions that need to be made. So that part isn't always so much fun. Being involved, I picked the right year to get involved, you know, with all the items that are coming on with the 375th committee, what they've done for the town. I can say that's a lot of fun. Some of the things I've been invited to, being able to present an Eagle Scout for the accomplishments he's made, I consider that to be fun, you know. But to answer your question, it is everything I expected. You know, there's a lot of research you need to do to come up to speed on some of these subjects, and you know, the budget was a tough one and a new one for me.
It always has to be, I guess, because
Yeah.
it's so complicated.
Absolutely. But we kind of, Molly McGee, another counselor, has suggested we take a look at the process and whether we need to take a little bit more time. I mean, we started the budget, all of a sudden it was done, you know,
Yeah.
and there was a little bit of steps missing in the middle, in my opinion. But we'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would imagine that that being a town council member requires a lot of your time.
You know, I'll be honest with you, Doug. It takes less time than I thought it would.
Really?
Yeah. And I say that because the meetings are every 2 weeks. I try to pick up my package the first day it comes out on a Thursday. I go through it. There is one time constraint that if I go through that package and I have some questions, I've got Friday and I've got Monday to get those questions answered. And people at the town hall will tell you I do call and I do my research. And trying to prepare from these subjects, you know, you're into Saturday or Sunday and working it around your regular schedule. That can be tricky, but it's important. I mean, people elected me and I take my role seriously. So I try to come to the meetings prepared, but I also try to come to them open-minded from the standpoint, if somebody says something during that meeting that's going to sway my opinion, then so be it. You know, I think that's the way we should approach it.
Yeah, I agree. And I'd like to say I applaud what all of you do and the service you provide to the town, because I realize that many people think these issues are very simple, yes or no. Most of them are not like that at all.
Right.
And there's much more depth into each one. And I think the part of the problem is the public cannot grasp the details of everything there is out there. There's just not enough time.
Right.
And so,
nor do I think they want to.
yeah, I think
they
that's what they
elect
depend
us.
on you for.
Yeah, they elect us, and they're depending on us to make the right decisions for them.
Yeah.
And then if there's specific items that require the public's individual attention, as in a special election or a vote, or something of that nature, I think they take more of an interest,
Yeah.
or if it affects them directly.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of not in my backyard kind of stuff in every town, and certainly in Portsmouth as well.
Sure.
But again, I appreciate the time and the effort that you all spend doing this as a civic duty.
Well, it gives me an appreciation of the people that have come before me and
Absolutely.
the service that they've done.
That's right. And you think back and you say, wow, these guys were here and they did all this stuff. I guess that leads to my final question on this topic anyway, and that's, would you encourage other people to run for council? You think it's something people should do maybe once in a lifetime or something?
I do. I think looking at it now, the reality is most of us are raising a family, our 20s to our 40s, and I think we get to a certain point where we have a little extra time on our hands, or we've been in a town long enough that we really love the town, we appreciate it, we want to make it better, we want to improve the things that are out there already, we want to expose things that people don't know are there, we don't know that are there. But I think I got into it the right way by getting on a committee, and I totally endorse people looking for something. There's 25 different committees in town that would suit anybody's interests.
Or more.
Or more.
Probably
yeah,
more.
probably more than that.
Yeah.
From the Harbor Commission, which was people, on waterfront issues, right-of-ways, et cetera, to the issues like Glen Farm, our infrastructure. Yeah, so there's plenty of things to do.
Yeah. I'm also totally amazed at how much volunteers do in every town, probably, but certainly in Portsmouth.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of stuff that gets done free by people who are just donating their time, trying to help the town be a better place.
Well, I think a classic case would be somebody like yourself and what you've done.
But the thing is, I have to tell you, this is fun.
Yeah.
This 375th is fun, and the good news for me is it's over in a year. So
I don't think so, Doug.
well, no, I hope not. And one of the things, several of us went over to London, England, and you heard about it.
Of course.
We debriefed to the council. But the thing that amazed me there was how civil they are to each other. And I think there's a lesson that we can learn there here in Portsmouth. Rather than having these very rancorous shouting matches at town council meetings, there's a better way to do this and still be friends with everybody.
Right.
And I think that's part of what we're trying to do with the 375th is just bring people together. Let's get into.
You're not alluding to our council right now being.
No.
rancorous.
In fact, it's not the council so much as it is the folks that come up and want to rant at the council.
Sure.
So
Now, as far as, this council that I'm on right now, I think is a fairly good makeup, and I think we've gotten along very well.
it seems so.
I mean,
And-
we
and-
have some of our own issues to deal with, but in general, I've enjoyed it and working with my fellow councilors. I want to
And
say
as a
that.
resident, I appreciate that. I'd much rather see my elected officials getting along,
Absolutely.
even if they don't have to necessarily agree on everything.
Right.
So keep up the good work there.
Okay, thank you.
Let's talk about some of the issues. I know that's what people would like to hear about, I guess. What are the biggest issues you think the town faces this year and in the coming year?
I thought about that, and I still think the biggest issue is going to be wastewater. I've listed them as wastewater, the Elmer School demolition, and making a decision on the wind turbine generator. But on the wastewater issues, we still have 6 months, and it's not a lot of time for the people within the 200-foot area to the water that might have a cesspool, and not all of them have the answers that they want. So we're waiting for an answer back from the DEM. We as a council ourselves, we're waiting for that answer, but I'm a little nervous because we have two councils that have taken upon themselves that are speaking to Janet Coit, and I'm a little nervous that the rest of us aren't involved. We've hired a top-notch lawyer. I'm sure he's a little nervous about that himself, and we need to stay focused. We need to make a town council decision rather than having a fishing expedition trying to figure out which direction to go. So, hopefully we'll get the right answers. We're still looking for a wastewater management district, hiring a wastewater manager. We've allotted some money, some serious money, as a loan program for people that are going to need some help. And I think in the long run it'll work out, but it's an issue that isn't resolved at this point.
Now, did the council approve the wastewater management plan put forward by Gary Crosby?
Yes, they did.
Okay, so
that was
the basic
forwarded to the
plan
DEM.
goes
Correct.
forward to the DEM, and that's what you're waiting for.
We're
a
waiting for
response
them to
from
say we agree with it. There's no way I would believe that this is going to come back without them saying you need to make some changes here, there, etc.
And I also think, just as a resident, that we can't keep ignoring this problem.
No, we can't. And it's we can't just say it's their problem, the people that live down there.
Yeah.
With a wastewater management district, everybody's going to be held responsible for their own property. We all need to take into account that there's a septic system in our backyard, and we have to maintain it.
Yeah.
Let me talk about the Elmer School.
Yes,
I
please.
mentioned that as an important item because we've given an opportunity to at least one person to save the chapel, and that's the biggest open area right now. I've mentioned to the council, we've talked about actually going out to bid so that others can come on board officially and say, here's my plan. Now that plan has to work with the manor house, and it may be able to, it may not be. But we also have an emotional attachment to the chapel by many people, not unlike the wind turbine. I mean, I'll combine these two together in that respect, that we had a turbine that was spinning, it hasn't spun for a year, and people are upset. There are people that say it's never going to be right, and they're saying, what are you waiting for? Let's get it spinning. So it's not going to be an easy decision. We have some final quotes on that are being studied right now. And backtracking to the Elmer School, we've put an end date of September to be able to make a decision, because come November we're going to be taking down the school proper. So these are major issues that are still unresolved. Yeah,
and particularly with the chapel, I think everybody understands the emotional attachment. It's a beautiful looking spot.
Absolutely.
But I sort of had a mind change of this over the last couple of months.
Really?
I was at the council meeting when Katie from the Glen Manor House sort of was talking about it, and I think she's right in the sense that to keep it open, to use it for something, you need a plan to keep funding it going forward.
Right.
And I think that's where everybody agrees, yeah, it'd be nice to keep it, but how do we keep it? And
Exactly.
I think that's what this group's got to focus on now and come up with a good plan for doing that. What about the Aquidneck Land Trust proposal?
I've been a big proponent of that for some time now, and let me backtrack by saying, as chair of the Lower Glen Farm Preservation Committee, I approached the council probably 2010 or 11 and said, you know, it's time to consider preserving this property. And I gave them 3 ways to do it. I didn't specifically say it had to be the ALT. I suggested the town legally form its own land trust, which may or may not be practical. Make some changes to the charter, which after being on the charter committee, I know a future charter commission could change those. So that's not a hard and fast way of doing it. So when the land trust came forward with $1,150,000 offer, I thought it was a very generous offer. I've been a proponent of preserving that property, and it's been left on the table at $1.5 million, which would certainly help with the park down at the Elmer School. My biggest regret, you know, for the people of Portsmouth is they weren't able to vote on it. June of 2012, we were told that it would go to special election. And we just lost a lot of time in negotiating or going through wordsmithing the contract, and you know, it finally died not that long ago. And I take that back. It hasn't died. We're still negotiating to some degree. But I hope to give that option to the people. If people say they don't want to take that, I respect that. But I just would like to see that vote get to the people. I don't think it's a council vote where it's properties involved.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that one too, because I do think that I would speculate that the majority of people would want that area preserved.
Absolutely.
You know, we're seeing this year, by the way we're trying to use this, what a resource it is for the town.
And a lot of people argue that there's nobody banging on our door to put houses in there now. But
yeah, it wouldn't take long.
Yeah, it wouldn't take long, and you know, ultimately, you know, if you know, some other council may view it differently. So I would like to be on the council to say I help preserve the Glen. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good luck to you on that one. I'll be with you. I'll be behind you on that.
Thank you.
I'm hoping there's still a possibility that cooler heads can prevail on that, perhaps, and we can, you know, work something out.
I feel optimistic that there's something will happen.
I know some people are concerned about the issue of in perpetuity and how that means forever, and all I can say is nothing is forever.
Right.
And the thing is, but this is a good way, I think, to protect that property for future generations.
And let me just comment one other thing. A lot of people don't really understand the concept of the out zones. And I've heard people say, well, if you have an out zone, then we could sell part of that, or another person could come in and build on that out zone. The whole purpose of that out zone is for the benefit of the town. You know, we have an out zone around the polo field, around the barns, around Glen Park. It just says within that out zone, if the town of Portsmouth decides they want to build another barn at Glen Park, we have the right to do that.
Right.
We're able to carry on normal business within those out zones. That's all that means.
Yeah.
And we've actually expanded that area.
Well, as I say, good luck on that, because
Yeah.
I certainly would like to see that go to a public vote too, and I kind of suspect the way the public would vote on it, which I think is important. At least that's my sense.
Of course.
Let me ask you another more personal question. What's the best way for your constituents in Portsmouth to get a hold of you or to contact you if they have an issue? For example, if they support you on this ALT proposal, how can they tell you that? How do they contact you?
Well, I have, you know, all of our emails and phone numbers are listed in the Daily News.
They're up
and
on
on our
town
websites,
website.
and people feel free to call me, email me. I have people call me about different subjects. I take those calls and call people back, and I'll do whatever I can within reason. You know.
Well, I think the main thing is that you listen to people.
Well, thanks for saying that. I think that is true. I'll take credit for that.
Yeah, and I think that's the key thing. Whether you agree with them necessarily or whatever, at least you get a sense. And for people to say, well, I'm not going to call because it won't make any difference, sometimes it does make a difference.
Sure.
At least it gives you a perspective.
And sometimes people just need a chance to bring forward their problems. I mean, one of the first things I brought to the council was an individual that was near a right-of-way, you know, and you know, I dug for a long time, did the research, and to me it looked like a public right-of-way, and I brought that forward. finding out that the people that abut that right of way are both lawyers made me a little nervous in the long run, and I backed off. But moving forward, I want to say that two of the items that I'm going to work for the people are, preservation of the Glen Farm, items of that nature, access to the water. We're working with CRMC, with Gary Crosby, and in the near future, I think we'll be designating 2 additional right-of-ways in the town of Portsmouth. And the goal is to go after a couple every year, that we believe are public and we can prove are public.
Yeah.
I've also would like to see some additional revenues come into the town from some of our empty buildings around town. I'd love to see the south side of Coggeshall School used. I'd like to give a little help to the Brown House to see that finally repaired. And down the road, across from the polo rings, we've got a house with a blue tarp on the roof to keep the water out. We've got some infrastructure issues that need to be dealt with, and I hope to do so.
Dave, one of the purposes of our 375th anniversary celebration this year is to try to bring people together. And you mentioned this with the people contacting you on the Aquidneck Land Trust proposal. What we wanted to do was to try to come up with something that everybody in town can be proud of and can get behind. How do you think we're doing on that? Do you think we're reaching people with that kind of message? Do you think people are coming on board?
Absolutely. I wear my hat all the time.
Yeah, I appreciate
people
that.
ask me about that. No, it's my pleasure. And I think the 375th Committee has done an awesome job. Thanks to yourself, Bob Hamilton. There's many others down the line. Deborah Korea, I believe it is.
Yeah, is she a relative of your wife?
She is not.
She's not.
But we've talked about some different ideas, and I think you've got a long list of volunteers that all deserve recognition. Some of the events, I'd love to go to Jim Garman's talks at the library. He just did one on Island Park.
I know.
And I've been to all of those. I think I may have missed one. I take that back. And the Founders Brook ceremony this past weekend, people don't know it's there. It's a beautiful park, and without the 375th, we probably wouldn't know about it. So keep up the good work. Well,
thanks, and I hope you'll join us at some of the other events. We have several coming up next week. And one key one I'd like to mention is the dedication of the Blue Star Memorial at the Public Library. That's on the 10th at 2 p.m. And it's a really nice thing to do for our veterans in town.
Great.
We're out of time, David, so I've got to get off here. And thank you very much for coming in and sharing your views.
You.
And please come in later on, too, as things change, and give us an update.
Sounds good.
That's it for me, Doug Smith, signing off from Portsmouth This Week. Thank you.
The British are coming, the British are coming. The Great Portsmouth 375th Anniversary Grand Celebration will be around Labor Day weekend, so plan to avoid the traffic and stay home in Portsmouth to join in the fun. Honored guests will be the Lord Mayor of Portsmouth, England, and the mayors of Portsmouth, New Hampshire and Virginia, arriving for a reception at Portsmouth's Glen Manor House on Thursday, August 29th. The public is invited, but tickets will be limited. A wine tasting reception is on the schedule for Friday afternoon at Greendale Vineyards, where guests can sample the special release of Portsmouth 375th label wine, commissioned by the vineyard especially for our celebration year. Saturday brings the 375th Grand Parade in the morning and the U.S. Polo team going up against the United Kingdom at the Glen International Polo Grounds in the afternoon. Sunday is the 375th Portsmouth Family Picnic at Portsmouth's Glen Park. For more information, go to portsmouthri375.com.